Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as war tears his country apart, Sudan's military ruler heads to Egypt for a presidential meeting. It's General Abdel Fattah-al-Burhan's first trip abroad since the army began clashes with fighters led by a rival general back in April. Also, refugees, asylum seekers and migrants in Tunisia still struggle to find support. Some Sudanese who fled months of brutal fighting at home now find themselves with nowhere to turn in the North African city of Zarzis. And the UN Secretary-General calls the pullout of 13,000 peacekeepers from Mali unprecedented as he briefs the Security Council about the delicate and high-stakes operation. But first, a day after rejecting calls for more attempts at negotiations with the paramilitary force with which he is at war, Sudan's military leader headed to Egypt for his first visit abroad since the conflict broke out 4 months ago. General Abdel Fattah-al-Burhan met with Egypt's president to discuss his offer to mediate. Camille Nedlek has more.
In the first trip abroad since fighting broke out in his own country, Sudan's General Fattah al-Burhan visited long-term ally Egypt for talks with President Sisi, where he welcomed Egypt's offer to mediate between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces.
We are committed to ending the war and putting an end to this tragedy. We, in the armed forces, are committed to setting a real transitional period in order for the Sudanese people to consolidate the state through free and fair elections that enable them to decide who will rule them.
The self-appointed military leader overthrew the civilian government in 2021, which, before being toppled, had already committed to a timeline for holding elections. The general's visit comes as shelling in Darfur on Tuesday killed dozens of civilians, mostly women and children. They're the latest casualties in a conflict that has killed thousands and turned once residential areas in Khartoum and other towns into urban battlegrounds. Almost 5 million people have been forced to flee.
We were told of a route out, but despite that, 4 of us were wounded. We wandered barefoot round El Janina for 7 days, moving from one place to another. We had no water and no food. Even though I was 7 months pregnant, I had to carry my 4-year-old boy on my back, and my girl, who is 6, followed on foot. We were walking barefoot.
On Sunday, RSF Chief Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo proposed a 10-point peace plan, which was swiftly rejected by al-Burhan. At least 7 ceasefires have been broken since the start of the conflict.
Well, the hundreds of thousands of refugees caused by Sudan's war have headed in all directions. Some have made it as far as Tunisia, where they risk a difficult reception, particularly if they're dark-skinned. In Tunisia, it's been nearly 2 months since mobs and authorities violently attacked black migrants and transported many to die in the desert in the desert heat. But the migration crisis continues. Our team reports from the southern Tunisian city of Zarzis.
Hundreds of Sudanese who arrived in Tunisia in recent months are taking refuge in a construction site on the side of the road in Zarzis. Ali, a resident, is allowing them to sleep there.
There are only a few of them and it was unbelievably hot, so I couldn't tell them to leave.
People come and go, and at times there have been up to 200 people staying here. Ali tries to manage the site as best he can.
I made a wall here to block the sunlight and provide shade. And this is a cooler. Someone from Zarzis brought it.
Makeshift showers and toilets have been set up outside.
Here's where they cook. They shouldn't be living like this. There should be humanitarian organizations here. It isn't human to leave people like this.
Ali and other locals are volunteering their help, but the situation is tenuous. One stranded Sudanese migrant tells us they don't know where else to go.
The only solution is support from NGOs. They are the ones who can help us. We can't stay like this.
We find them the following day in front of the Zarzis branch of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Like others, they wait to register themselves as asylum seekers. They don't want to speak on camera, fearing it could impact their request. Abdel Jabbar just received a call back for an interview for 2 months from now.
They gave me another month to wait, yet I have nowhere to live, nothing to eat, wear or drink. We're living in the street. All the people here are living in the street.
The UNHCR has confirmed that there has been a recent increase in Sudanese arriving in Tunisia and says it's coordinating with Tunisian authorities to provide assistance.
Now, Zimbabwe's main opposition coalition says that it will not settle for less than fresh elections after President Emmerson Mnangagwa's re-election last week. The Citizens Coalition for Change and its leader Nelson Chamisa reject the results and say that they haven't ruled out a court challenge. International observers have expressed concerns about the polls that prolong the ruling ZANU-PF party's 4 decades plus hold on power. In the first use of an offence introduced by an internationally condemned but nationally supported homophobic law brought in May, Ugandan authorities have charged a man with aggravated homosexuality. The charge carries a possible death penalty. The suspect is reportedly a 20-year-old from the eastern district of Soroti, accused of having unlawful sexual intercourse with a 41-year-old man. The UN has briefed the Security Council on the pullout of peacekeepers from Mali. In the wake of the military takeover there in 2020, 13,000 peacekeepers are due to leave the country by December 31st, in an operation that UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called unprecedented.
It's an operation that is particularly difficult to carry out. After their 10-year peacekeeping mission in Mali, the UN's MINUSMA is pulling out as demanded by the ruling junta.
And Mali, as you know, is landlocked, infrastructure is limited, and insecurity is a reality. And carrying out this task of withdrawal and drawdown within the agreed timeline is not an easy undertaking.
13,000 peacekeepers have to be evacuated by December 31st. This map shows the 3 phases of the operation. 12 camps and 1 temporary base will be handed over. 5,500 sea containers of equipment need to be moved out. In the first phase, peacekeepers were attacked on several occasions.
As many of us feared, the transition government's decision to close MINUSMA has already triggered renewed violence on the ground.
The UN was deployed in Mali to help protect the population as the country was facing Islamist and separatist rebellions. 300 MINUSMA personnel were killed in the mission. After a junta took over power in 2020 and turned to Russia and the Wagner Group to help its troops, the new leaders demanded the departure of French and UN troops. The United Nations says that in less than a year, jihadist fighters have almost doubled the territories they control in the country.
And music and dance has always been at the cultural heart of the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. But world-renowned dancer and choreographer Melaku Bile has made the Fendika Center in the Ethiopian capital the real hub for indigenous performance, and it's attracted visitors from around the world. However, back in June, when the city said it planned to tear down Bendika, Bile and lovers of Ethiopian dance and music quickly got to work, successfully campaigning to stop the demolition. Take a look.
Fine art and music always go hand in hand. Fendika is a centre where one can find art, poetry and music in one place. It is the one and only art village that survived destruction.
Actually, I love Ethiopian music and dance and other traditional things. But among all those traditional things, Fendika's atmosphere is the best for me.
Glad to see it still standing. Well, that's it, though, for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again, though. We'll be back shortly with more. Take care.